strategies, improvement in quality of life, understanding of health in disease, and in fact as well, clinical research provide evidence which clinicians use to know how to safely and effectively treat, prevent, or diagnose disease or promote health. And this is not limited to that, but also including other important benefits like economy of the countries. So there is a couple of things that research will give us an idea, and so that we need it. Looking for that, usually in research involved, small number of participants are asked to accept risk to benefit the money. So there is like a people that volunteers to get in the research, not for their benefit, but actually to benefit the general knowledge in certain disease or even though some phenomena in the community. Benefit to participant is not the purpose, although it does occur in certain situations. Participants are the means to developing useful knowledge and are thus at risk of exploitation. So this participant might be at risk of side effect of certain disease or medication, so they put themselves at risk. So looking for this and going to conduct research that promoting responsible and useful research to benefit society in general and future patients. And this is where we have to start our medicine, usually by experience and then improving to have new medicine or new devices or new drugs that not being used in the humans. From that point, we have to qualify that this medication are essential to be used, not just only to use it from first day that being produced. And in the other hand, to minimize harm, exploitations by protecting and respecting participant rights and welfare. So we have a balance between the welfare and right of the patient. In the same time, we have, in the other hand, to use research to verify our knowledge. Is this medication will be good, or this medication should be withdrawn? Is this new therapy will be effective and helpful the patient or not? So it is a lot of issues need to be governed. Is there any difference between research and clinical practice? Of course, yes. Usually clinical practice being proven in evidence-based that effective, while research is going to support that evidence. So this is the difference between both. They have both of them different goals, different methods, and different justification for risk and individuals. Let us say patient that with some malignancy, already there is a chemotherapy that by evidence were found to be effective, and there is new chemotherapy that going to be used in certain type of cancers. This is need to be conducted in research and show that the safety to apply to this patient. So there is a difference between clinical practice that being already established and new therapies that should be introduced for treatment of. So if we said that, yes, that we need to have clinical research, then how to conduct that research? And this is where the ethics started on. Is that feasible? Just any one of us need to do research, go immediately to his patient and start applying whatever he wants look, or this is need to be governed and controlled by guidelines. And this is why we have an ethical components in clinical research. Why that? To promote the responsible conduct of useful clinical research and progress in the understanding and intervening in human health and illnesses. In the same time, to minimize the possibility of escalations and harm. In the same time as well, ensure that the rights and welfare of subjects are respected, and while they are contribute to the generations of the knowledge. In the same times, to help to maintain public trust in our therapies and as well future research. Looking for the history of ethics for clinical research, that started with in the past with few rules based on the physician experimenting and to benefit of the individuals, then progress to have utilitarian era that emphasizes to benefit whole of the society together, that as well including people who's having or vulnerable to certain group like disease, or even that not able to have or mentality having an ability to science certain consents, then widely explained to have an examination of the scope of our research. Where are the limits and where we can do this? So rules and regulations start to be built in that to protect the human subjects from the use them on the research. That really looking for certain issues for participation in research as benefit rather than to be only just for interest of the researchers. So we have the National Research Act in 1974 that established the National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research. And that's really looking for the conducting research to respect for the person who's going to participate, the beneficence as well as justice. So this is the rules or the basis of any human research ethics. Then looking for the boundaries between the practice and even though the research. Then we started to have the international codes and guidelines, laws and regulations from other jurisdictions and institutional policies and guidelines, and then creating the principles of the human research ethics. So we have the Nuremberg Code, 1949, then the Declaration of Helsinki and the Belmont Report, that then followed by the international guidelines, as well the international conferences in harmonization and good clinical practice. So we have a lot of agencies starting to look for this and to protect the right of the participant in the human research. And the most guidance developed in response to the historical events or some divergent recommendation. Sometimes we have problems with certain researchers. Sometimes we developed unusual status during the research. So this is together make the histories of the research and building up the guidelines. Differences in the interpretations of the any case or complaint during research. And this is actually need a systematic, coherent, universal, and applicable framework as we know. What are the principles of any research to conduct it in the ethical manners? We have to consider the collaborative partnerships, valuable scientific questions, valid scientific methodology, fair subject selections, favorable risk and benefit, independent review, and informed consent, and respect for enrolled subjects. So this is the 8 principles which need to be really available in any type of research that we are gonna to do. Respect of the less risk or benefit for any research. And every hospitals now, and even though internationally, this is the principle where being implanted in each system that having feasibility for research departments. What do we mean by collaborative partnership? This should be collaborative partnership where the relevant to collaboration in planning, so that you need to have consult your hospitals, your mentors when you are planning research and conducting and overseeing research. Secondly, integrating research results into the health systems that you have, collaborations with existing system of healthcare, and respect for contributors of the or contribution of your partner. This is where we are putting this together so that no one of us having conflict with other collaborators with you when you are doing your research. Usually, this is the collaboration integrated by policy makers and health system that you are working on, community advisory boards, patient advocates on scientific advisory boards, advocates for research funding, and collaborating investigators and practicing clinicians. So all of this is together will be the people that usually making the collaborative partner in any research. Could be sometimes, cannot find it in the small research, but when you are doing big clinical trials or having national research, this is an important skeleton for that research to be put in considerations. Valuable scientific questions. No research without feasible questions. If you have to have success in your research, you have to have questions that need to be answered and valuable in the same time. So, and that will generate new knowledge utilized in the field that you are going to do your research, or understanding about the human health or illnesses, either the socially, clinically, or scientifically useful questions. So to have value for that questions, for the, which we called it the social value, we have to have the, what is that research questions that need to be addressed, how is value to be judged, and then to whom is answering the questions valuable, who are the beneficiaries for that questions. And then you have to look who are the participants to that question could be helpful, community in which participant is live, people with similar conditions, and society or the future pupils. Valid scientific methodology. If you are going to conduct research, you need to select the methodology that help you to have significant result. So ethical clinical research should be designed in methodologically rigorous manners, either design, methods, or statistical power that will yield valid, reliable, generalizable, and interpretable, and feasible and repeatable in the same times. So if you are going to do some research, put in your mind these questions that to be addressed, having the scientific way to be researched on. To have good research and scientific validity, you have to select your endpoint to answer in that research, to have good choice for the design, either randomized, double-blind control, or non-inferiority or superiority. The same time that the procedure, how to measure the outcome of that research, length and follow-ups. Short follow-ups usually is not helpful to have really significant result. And what are the follow-ups, that things that you have to look is important, so then you have to have good data. And then the statistical methods, power, sample size, methods, level of significance. That's important to be emphasized from the beginning of research. Sometimes you might do your research, but your sample size is not enough to support your end result. So whatever you do must be invalid. So to get that valid result and really support your questions, you need to have enough sample size with good methods of statistical methods. Then the feasibility. Is that feasible to do this research or not? If it's not going to be feasible, so you don't need to start with. So maybe utilize your resources without end result. And that might be not leading to increase or utilize in the available knowledge that in the literature. Fair subject selection, and that's an important. Sometimes we are not respecting our subjects, and we're thinking that just only to ask your patients to participate, but this patient might be because under force of your, as you are the physicians, they might get, but actually they are not really the good subjects. So we have to guide inclusion criteria, then recruitment strategies, and selection. And that's what we usually are asking all the researchers to put this in their proposal before we start their research, to check is it that really gonna to help or not. And then minimize the harm and fairly distribute harms and benefits, no exclusion without justification. And this is where we can look for the justice and beneficence of our participant. Fair subject selections. Research is not an easy thing. It's usually a burden for certain patients who might come frequently as a follow-ups, while their cases not need that follow-ups. In the same times, might be used for them for the access of the hospitals or the treatment areas. Favorable risks and benefits. Usually this is the most difficult part because this patient, when getting in the research, might be having risk to develop certain disease, which actually other people who is using the safe medication may not get that risk. So that's important to have justified that risk possibility in your research. Then there are challenges that could be developed. Identifying the risk for the patient, which one account and how much will be affected, minimizing and limiting the risk. And that's important to put it in your proposal before you start on. Then is that benefits could be direct or indirect, and the risk could be at the time of research or it could be years after that. That's important to be very clear for any subject that going to be participate in any research. Then independent review, which is this the important, and this is actually the areas where could help researcher to protect their subjects. And function of this independent review to ensure clinical requirements have been fulfilled, to check investigator bias and conflicts, and to assure the public that research is not exploiting individuals or groups. And this is why we have in each hospital IRB and ethical committee. And the criteria for IRB review, they have to minimize the risk, and the risks are justified by anticipated benefits, if any, to the subject or the importance of the knowledge to be gained from that research. Subject will be selected and treated fairly, and informed consent is adequately being issued. Challenging, usually we have it in any IRB, in any hospital, the number of research that submitted, the conflicts for the institute itself, the researchers and the reviewers, and varying interpretations of an important role in doing any medical research. Another issue is important in the informed consent. It is important that consent to disclosure of information completely, to understanding what is the nature of the research, and voluntary decision making. There is no force for that subject to be participate in that, and then the authorizations from the research from the subjects to conduct the research. So the challenge that could be happening nowadays, we have the stored data and bio specimens. We don't know for how long that could be stored and then when will be used, and pragmatic trials, learning healthcare systems, and digital data. And this is where we have nowadays looking how to ensure this data is not to be abused and to be used ethically rather than to be abused in a way that not helping or making the patients. Then the on-roll subjects, we have to make sure that protecting their confidentiality, to monitor welfares, to recognize right to withdraw at any times, providing new information for these patients who that informed in the research, informing subject for any finding at the time of the research or the futures, and planning for after trial informations. So the conflicts could be occur about these principles, and we have to have enhancing scientific validity that could increase the risks, and what seems necessary to respect enrolled subjects or obtained informed consent may compromise scientific validity. So there is two ways. If you are going to do your research in the right way, it might be not yielding the valid results, and the opposite as well if you getting to respect a lot. And in order to apply the principles, reconcile conflicts, and make informed judgment about the ethical research need, to educate and inform investigator, research teams, and partner who work together, educate and inform IRPs with diverse members, including investigators, statisticians, as well ethicists that usually focus on the type of research. And then we have to have people having good judgment to make sure that research is good. So in summary, we have to put this 8 principles together, that collaborative partnerships, that respectable partner with relevant communities and stockholders, social value for this research, that clinically, scientifically, and socially valuable questions, scientific validity, that appropriate rigors and feasibly designs, endpoints, and methods, fair subject selections, risk benefits should be explained for all the patients clearly, independent review by IRBs, and informed consent to be fully involve all the specific details of the research that's going to be conducted. And then lastly, we have to respect for the enrolled subject and their rights and welfare. Thank you. Next talks will be focused on the IRB in KKESH, looking for how it's informed, how we are going to do the process of applications and submissions of any research. And Ms. Reem Al-Khudair will do that in the next few minutes. Reem?
Good afternoon. I'm going to talk about the IRB process and documents that need to be submitted for research projects. First, I'm going to talk about the definitions for IRB. We have the Institutional Review Board is a committee that has been formally designated to approve, monitor, and review biomedical and behavioral research involving humans. They often conduct some form of risk-benefit analysis in an attempt to determine whether or not a research should be done. The definition of human subject research is a scientific investigation that can be either interventional, a trial, or observational, no test subject, so it's like a retrospective project, and involves human beings as research subjects. Human subject research can be either medical research or non-medical research. Ethics is made of 6 platforms. You have the rules and regulations, the values, the research, the moral principles, the ethical practice, and the rules of conduct. The international regulations that we usually follow are the SOPs from the MOH. We have the international regulations, and they can be viewed on the hhs.gov website. The Belmont Report, which is the respect for persons, the justice, and the beneficence. The Declaration of Helsinki. The authority of the IRB here in KKESH is to disapprove, approve, or modify studies based on consideration of human subject protection aspects, to require progress reports from the investigators and oversee the conduct of the study, to suspend or terminate approval of a study if violations are found, to place restrictions on a study. The IRB here at KKESH reports to the bioethics at KAKS. We have 43 IRB committees in Saudi Arabia, and 12 of them are located in Riyadh. We have the King Khalid Eye Hospital, the Strategic Center for Diabetes Research, the Saudi Center for Organic Transplantation, the King Fahd Medical City, the College of Science at King Saud University, King Abdulaziz Medical City, Prince Sultan Military Medical City, General Administration for Research and Study in MOH, the Saudi Food and Drug Authority, Prince Sultan Military Medical City, the Specialized Medical City, and King Saud Medical City. We have mandatory certifications for this year. All investigators need to go on the website for the bioethics and receive the National Committee of Bioethics certifications. This is the website where you can go to visit and you register. Then you will take, they'll give you like a summary of some slides to read, and then you will answer questions. And if you pass, then you will get a certification at the end. This is what the website looks like when you enter the bioethics website. At the bottom, you will see the registration. You click at the registration, and it'll open. Sorry. It'll open the registration for the researchers. You fill in all the information. You will get an email confirmation with the username, the password, everything. Then you will get an approval email. That's when you can enter to go to the online course and take it. You will need to submit the certification with your application, with your research application. All investigators need to have this certification. This is mandatory to make sure everybody understands what human subject protection is and no violations are faced. The history of KKESH IRB. It was created in 1984, 1 year after the hospital was established, and it was registered with the National Committee of Bioethics at KKESH on March 12, 2005. The IRB committee is made up of at least 5 KKESH physician members, representatives of both genders, 4 of whom must be medical staff ophthalmologists, and 1 of them who is a medical staff member from another department. At least 2 members representing both genders from KKESH who are non-physicians and are selected from the nursing, health, education, or social services, and at least 1 member who is not employed by KKESH. So it's an outside person. At least 1 of the 3 members who are not members of the KKESH medical staff must have a non-scientific background. The members of the IRB here at KKESH, we have Dr. Samar Swerim, she's the chair. We have Dr. Muhammad Al-Shamarani, who is the vice chair. We have Dr. Abdullah Al-Hamadan from pharmacy. We have Dr. Hernan Osorio. We have Khitam Al-Marshad from the health education. We have Dr. Muhammad Al-Mutlaq. We have Dr. Munir Hassan, Dr. Uhud Awela, Dr. Patrick Schatz, Dr. Pedro Matar, Dr. Rizwan Malik, Dr. Silvana Scalini, and Dr. Suleiman Suleiman. And from outside, we have Dr. Wafa. The functions of the IRB. To conduct the initial and continuing review of all projects, so from start to finish until publications, report in writing findings and actions of the IRB to the investigators and the institution, determine which of the required reviews are more often than annual, so some projects need to be reviewed not just yearly or semi-yearly, it depends on how intense the project is. To determine which study needs verification that sources other than the investigators, that no material changes have occurred since previous IRB reviews. This is important, that the way your IRB, your project is approved is the way it needs to be done. If any changes needs to be done to the protocol, the procedure, you need to add anything or change anything in the documents, the data collection sheet, you will need to get approval. You send an amendment request and get approval before anything is implemented. Ensure prompt reporting to the IRB of changes in the research activities. Ensure that changes in approved research are not initiated without IRB review and approval except when necessary to eliminate a apparent immediate hazard. This is just in specific cases. Ensure prompt reporting to the IRB, appropriate institutional officials, and the Saudi FDA of unanticipated problems involving risk to subjects or others, the serious or continuous non-compliance or the requirements of the IRB, suspension or termination of the IRB approval, and also the last function is determining which medical device studies pose significant or non-significant risk. The types of projects that are usually submitted: you have the clinical trials, the epidemiological research, the social science research, the research on medical records or other personal information, the research on stored samples, and the health system research and implementation research. The review categories that are usually here are the full review, the exemption, and the expedited review. The full review, proposed human subject research, which does not fall into either the exempted or expedited review categories, must be submitted for full community review. This will go to the IRB committee, which is usually once a month. The exemption are, for example, survey research, the interview research, and the observation of public behavior when the investigation participants in the activities of being observed. The expedited reviews are certain kinds of research involving no more than minimal risk and for minor changes in approved research. The timeframes for projects to be finalized. For case reports, it's usually 6 months. For reviews, the same. Retrospective projects and technical development reports usually are a year, and the prospective projects are usually 2 years. It can go more than that if it needs to, but this is usually the average. The procedures that the IRB office takes when you submit a research project, we check the title against previous submitted projects so we don't have duplications. We check the application and the supporting document to make sure that all the information that's needed to be reviewed is in the documents. We give them a specific number because it's not easy to memorize long titles. So we usually give a number, a specific number to each project, and you keep that number handy. It'll be easier for us to communicate. Provisional approval, which is done inside the department. The medical staff notification, which goes to all physicians and all doctors in the hospital to notify that there's a project with this title that's going to be done at KKESH. And we usually give 7 days for anybody to challenge or to have something against that project, or they have done that project, or they would like to share working on the project. They have the expedited review, the approval and or disapproval decision, which is made 7 days after the medical staff notification is done. The full board review is sent to 2 reviewers from the IRB members, and then it will be discussed in the next IRB meeting. The types of IRB decisions that you will be getting is the approved, the project can start. You have the approved with minor changes. When revisions, it will go back to the IRB chair or the specific reviewers who saw the project, and they will give a final decision, so it doesn't go to a meeting. You have the major changes, and this one goes back to the committee, so they can re-review it and re-discuss and make a final decision. And then you have the disapproved. The time frames usually are for resubmissions. For the initial resubmission, where you're given a project number, but it hasn't gone to any kind of review, and you need to change, like you were requested to modify the protocol to provide more information. Usually you're given 1 month to do so. After 1 month, the project is disregarded. And for to revise after the IRB meeting, or if you got a memo from the IRB saying minor changes or major changes to the protocol to add or change things, we give you 2 months to resubmit. You have the documents that need to be submitted. These are the documents that need to be submitted for each type of project. You have the prospective project, so you have the NCBE certification. You have the prospective form Part A, the IRB application Part B, the investigator assurance form, which lists all the policies, and all the investigators need to sign, and this means that everybody acknowledges the policies and they will stick by it. The data collection sheet, and the informed consent. For the retrospective projects, you have the NCBE certification, the retrospective form Part A, the application Part B, the investigator assurance form, and the data collection sheet. The case reports is the certification for each investigator, the IRB case report form, the investigator assurance form. If the case report involves genetic testing, if there's an informed consent already taken for the patient, we need a copy of it. If there is no informed consent, then you need to get their consent. This is for genetics and case reports. On the research website, if you go to the research website, you can get all the documents that are needed, that are available. You can also email me, and I will send you a copy of it. If you go to the research website and go under project submission, you will see the proposals and IRB forms. If you click on it, it'll open the next page, which lists all the documents that are needed. I mean, in the title, you can tell like retrospective, prospective case reports. Part B is usually for prospective and retrospective. This is where you have your background, your review literature, your methods, your utilizations, all detailed, and your references. At the application cover page, this is mandatory. What needs to be, and these parts are the most important parts that need to be ticked. You have what type, is it just a KKESH project or is it a collaborative project? Then you have, if you're a resident, a fellow, a medical student, you also need to notify project. We usually like it to be short, but if it's you can't go that short, it's okay. The type of project, what type of project you're going to be submitting. The start date is usually a futuristic date. So like today is the 6th, you can't say like the 7th. You won't have time to get the approval. Give us at least 7 days to review your project, to look over your documents, and to send you an approval or disapproval for the project. So give us at least 7 days. So make it like next week or a future date, or you can just state as soon as approved. So whenever you get approval, you can automatically start. The anticipated duration is how long it's going to take you to complete the project and publish. So you state a month, 1 year, 6 months, a year and a half, whatever you need to publish the project. This table is for the investigators, where you have to list the investigators, their names. You have the first, which is the principal investigator. The second, you can have two principal investigators. So in the blank here before the investigators, you can list co or P, just to differentiate. If there's a second PI, if it's just one PI and the rest are all co-investigators, just write co, and list their names. The contact information, so we need an email where we can contact. All our communications are through email. We will send you all the documents, approvals, the modifications, the progress requests, any notifications through email. So we need an email from everybody, and it would be preferred something you would always check. The human subject certification, this is the NCBE certification, so you need to tick that. And then KKESH staff. The sample size needs to be placed, the sample size here at the bottom, you have the number, which is the source, and then you have the source where you will be taking. So if it's a retrospective, just write medical report. If it's prospective, that's where you actually state which division you're going to be collecting the samples from. The minors questions, this is very important because these are vulnerable patients, the minors, so we need to know if there's any minors that are going to be involved in projects. The informed consent, this is what it looks like. You have, just fill in the English section. We will translate it into Arabic, so don't worry about that. Just, there's a guideline also that is provided on the website, and I can also provide it to you, where it will explain each section what needs to be stated. There are specific things that need to be stated for it to be an adequate informed consent. And make sure you don't, when you write the informed consent, you write it at a 6th grade level. So anybody who's in 6th grade will be able to understand. So abbreviations, try to write the abbreviations and explain everything in simple words. Some of the sections are already automatically, these are standard that have to be in the, so it's already provided and it's already translated, but just the areas that are empty are the areas that need to be filled. This is the second page, which is automatically there. The contact, the most important, someone needs to be listed as a contact in case the subjects need to contact someone in that project, investigator. It can be the PI or the co-I, it's your decision. And then the third, this is the last page where this is for the, when you come to collect, so this is, don't write anything here, don't sign it, don't date it. This is when you come to get to informed consent, then this information is signed, is provided. The data collection sheet, we have a standard data collection sheet where you can just place the title and then place the information here. There's no specific information that needs to be provided. It depends on your project. So if you need to get MRN numbers, if you need to get the gender, if you need to get which region they're from, age, background, nationality, the vital signs. It depends on your project. So it's left blank. Just take whatever information. Some people have it like an Excel. Just copy it, paste it here, and that's fine. We just need to know exactly what you're going to be collecting, because this is what's going to be approved. But just make sure you can just leave the project number empty. I will write that. Once the number is given to your project, just make sure that the project title is there and it's unified throughout the application. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me, send me an email, come to my office. I am happy to help. I will look over your documents before they're reviewed, before they're submitted for their initial review. Send them to me before you sign them, before you go around looking for the doctors and looking for the investigators to have them signed. I will look over your documents. I will make sure everything is there, everything that's needed to be there. I will correct it, edit it, whatever you need to make sure when it goes for review, it is complete. So it doesn't go back and forth, so it could save your time and save time for the IRB. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions, anything regarding to IRB or research department? You can willing to answer our say. You can at any time. And you can for that contact Mr. Abdulrahman for your help in your research. Please, who's for those people who's going to conduct research in King Khalid from outside the hospitals, they have the opportunity to do that, but to make sure that they have co-investigator from hospital staffs, so that in case that they need any help or in the future that need to contact that researcher, we have a link to them. Anyway, by this year's, most of the residents, they will have their own research, and we are going to have, Dr. Rajiv here, and there is another epidemiologist, biostatisticians will be with us in 1 week from now, and that can help you to design your research methods and even calculating the samples, and help you in the future how to put your results and put it in the way that could help your utilization of this data. So thank you, and see you next week.
السلام عليكم، كيف حالك؟ الله يرضى تبعك هذا اي بس ابغى لك في احد
دكتور؟ لا شكله مش هنا. شو انت بتشيك معي دكتور؟ دكتور خليني ارفع لك هذا عشان ظهرك.
انا ماني لاقي البرزنتيشن حقي. شلون اسوي سيرش على الفايل؟
خلاص امشي.
طيب ابغى السلايدر البرزنتر اي
شوف في
review.
دكتور نسوي حاجة بدك تسمعي؟ نسوي حاجة. وين هذه؟ كلابس كلوز شو هذه؟ بالنسبة للانترفيو موجود ايش مكان ثانية؟ ماني شايف. شكرا دكتور. طيب فايف
مناسب، شكرا.
شو صار؟ روح ولا لا؟
ارجع. ممتاز. طيب حلو. اوكي.
خلاص اشتغل.
شغال. بس باقي.
اي يلا نبدا ريكورد.
نبتدي يا شباب، جاهزين؟ طيب تبون نستنى لين 5 دقائق يعني زيادة؟ خلاص اوكي. طيب راح نمر على كل سؤال دقيقة كاملة، وبعدين برجع عليهم. اقروا الهيستوري كويس، بعدين برجع عليهم مرة ثانية. 6 أسئلة هي، برجع عليهم كل سؤال نص دقيقة مرة ثانية، وبعدين خلاص. اوكي؟ اوكي نبتدي يا شباب. Question 1. Question 2. Lead is okay. Unilateral. Question 3. Question 4. No pain. Question 5. Chronic. He had keratoplasty. Next question. Bonus. This is the bonus. Question 6. I'm going to go back again. Question 1 again. Question 2. Question 3. Question 4. Question 5. What do you mean not done anymore? There is no question about the procedure, the exam findings that you see, and the second question is how do you treat? Based on post PKP. Yeah, yeah. And question 6. Okay. Question 3. في أحد يعرف الجواب؟ Snowstorm. لا ما أعتقد إنه snowstorm. Blue dot cataract. Blue dot. Another name is punctate cataract. This is a developmental cataract autosomal dominant. هذا مريض جاني في العيادة. هذا second patient seeking refractive surgery. I see him with a blue dot cataract. Visual acuity usually is not affected and it's non-progressive. So هذا illustration اللي لقيته في الانترنت for the blue dot cataract. طبعا أنا جبت السؤال هذا for one is the workup of refractive patient. It's very important to take a full history from refractive patients and make sure that the patient is his refraction is stable with the pentacam ruling out ectasia. And the two important points are fluorescein ruling out dry eye and dilation. I found this on dilation. I thought that he had nothing. So if you didn't dilate, then you will not find this finding, the cataract. And it's important to put it on file. Okay. في أي سؤال? If you, but you have to tell the patient before that you can show it to him on photos. And would you like to pursue refractive surgery or no? Okay. Now, next question. يلا. في أحد يتبرع يجاوب من البنات؟ طيب، تفضل. Okay. And management, what's the management? Okay. Regraft. When do you regraft? Okay. So this is a primary endothelial failure, and the recommendation of the eye banks is 2 months. You can graft him as early as 4 weeks from surgery, 4 to 8 weeks. Now, what's the cause of primary graft failure? Iatrogenic. Suboptimal donor. Okay. Donor issues. Okay.